On today's show, Amen Thompson earns All-NBA Defensive First Team honors in just his second year in the association. Plus, we'll hear from Eay Odoka and Rafael in their exit interviews with Houston Rockets courtside reporter Vanessa Richardson. It's all coming up right here at Locked On Rockets.
This is Mission Control, Houston.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What's up and welcome to another edition of Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. As always, I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, native Houstonian and credentialed media member. I'm also the host of Locked On NBA Thursdays. Be sure to follow along wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Just search Locked On Rockets, where the best way you can help us grow our show is to listen every single day on a podcast platform of your choosing, and then like, comment, subscribe on YouTube. Now, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Just head on over to FanDuel.com. And as always, thanks so much for making Locked On Rockets part of your day every single day, whether it's on your way to work, on your lunch break, in the gym. Thank you so much for being an everydayer. Later in the episode, we're going to hear from head coach Eay Odoka and general manager Rafael in their respective exit interviews conducted with Rockets courtside reporter Vanessa Richardson. Some interesting topics brought up there. Eay Odoka commenting on Alperen, Sengun, and Amen Thompson's growth this season, what he expects from the team as far as growing and developing the IQ of this squad moving forward. And then Rafael discussing kind of the continuity versus star chasing dilemma facing this Rockets team this offseason. But first and foremost, we got to talk about the exciting news with Amen Thompson. Look, we thought he was going to be a lock to be on the all-defensive team this season, and he was locked in one of the 5 spots on the All-NBA Defensive First Team this year. Big-time honor for Amen Thompson, joining Evan Mobley, Dyson Daniels, Lou Dort, and Draymond Green on that All-NBA Defensive First Team. The second team comprised of Ivica Zubac, Jaren Jackson Jr., Jalen Williams from OKC, Toumani Camara in Portland, and Rudy Gobert in Minnesota. Really surprised with the Toumani Camara pick, although he flat out deserves it. Toumani Camara is awesome. But this is really exciting for the Rockets, really exciting for Amen Thompson. He is just the 5th different player in Rockets franchise history to have been selected to an all-defensive first team. The other 5 players include Hakeem Olajuwon, who did it 5 times, Rodney McRae, who did it once, Scottie Pippen, who did it once, and then Patrick Beverley, who did it once. So some very elite company there for Amen Thompson. Thompson is just the 9th player in NBA history and the 7th who didn't come from the ABA to have made an all-defensive first team in either his first or second season of his career. He's the 7th player in NBA history who was 22 or younger for the majority of a season to be named to the all-defensive first team. And some of the stats that stand out from this past season for Amen Thompson, the Rockets allowed the 6th fewest points this season, just 109.9 points per game. And they ranked 6th in field goal defense at just under 46%. Amen Thompson had the lowest defensive field goal percentage, just under 41%. So 40.7%. Of players with more than 10 games played who defended at least 9 shots per game. He also ranked 10th in defensive rating for players who average at least 30 minutes played. Just really fantastic metrics across the board for Amen Thompson. And it goes to show just how bright his future is. He's just when you look at the stat averages from this past season, which doesn't even factor, that he didn't start for half the season, right? His numbers as a starter are even more impressive. But this past season, averaged 14.1 points per contest, 8.2 rebounds, 3.8 assists, 1.41 steals, and 1.29 blocks. He became the first player with at least 10 games played in a season to have averaged at least 14, 8, and 3, alongside 1.4 steals and 1.2 blocks since Anthony Davis in the 2019-2020 season. And then from the start of January, Amen Thompson was one of 4 players with at least 10 games played to have averaged at least 15, 9, and 5. The other 3 guys were Giannis Antetokounmpo, Nikola Jokic, and Domantas Sabonis. That is some really elite company when you think about the future for Amen Thompson, right? And this all defensive selection, right, to the first team is going to be one of many. When you think about Amen Thompson's future, he's arguably already the best perimeter defender in the entire NBA because nobody has his blend of size, speed, skill, athleticism, length, IQ, and just innate defensive feel for the game. You look at the other members of that all-NBA defensive first team, right? And look, I'm not going to take anything away from Lou Dort and Dyson Daniels, who are both incredibly talented defenders in their own right, but I'm taking Amen Thompson 10 out of 10 times over both of those guys when it comes to needing to have a guy who is so incredibly versatile, right? There are very few defenders who can go from guarding Luka Doncic one possession or LeBron James one possession to guarding Steph Curry the next possession to clamping a big on a switch. Think about when he put the clamps on Evan Mobley and blocked his shot down low in one of those regular season games earlier this year. We throw around the terminology being able to guard 1 through 5 quite a bit. But Amen Thompson really is a guy who can guard all 5 positions on the floor. And he's such a multifaceted defender, being able to do it in a variety of ways, right? He can gamble, he can be aggressive, he can go for steals and blocks, he can be a weak side help defender, or he can be an elite on-ball presence like we saw for much of that series against the Golden State Warriors, where he really made life difficult for Steph Curry. Steph Curry saying that was one of the hardest series that he's ever played in the playoffs after the fact. So big time honor for Amen Thompson, one of many all-NBA defensive selections to come in his career. And it's just cool for the Rockets to be able to kind of get, recognition like that. And hopefully it, continues to be a feather in the cap for him in his career trajectory. Because again, just being in year 2, seeing the leap that he made from year 1 to year 2 and getting excited about what the future holds for him. Like, the sky, I can't even say the sky is the limit for Amen Thompson, right? Space is the limit for Amen Thompson, to the moon with Amen Thompson. So just really excited to be able to, talk about it. Really cool moment for him, for the Rockets, seeing all his teammates, Jalen, Sengun, guys sharing it on social media, hyping him up. Good stuff all around. So definitely want your thoughts on Amen Thompson being selected to the all defensive first team this season. And I also want your favorite moment of the season from Amen Thompson defensively. That'll be what I leave you with, is I want your favorite defensive highlight play from Amen Thompson this season. Let me know your thoughts in the YouTube comments. Coming up, we're going to hear from head coach Eay Odoka and general manager Rafael Stone in their respective exit interviews with Houston Rockets courtside reporter Vanessa Richardson. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. And FanDuel makes it so easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Which players are showing up in the biggest moments, and how could tracking their trends help you actually build out your next bet? Right now, you can go take a look at the odds-on favorites to win the NBA Finals this season. The Thunder still the favorites at -260. Behind them, the Pacers +500, the Knicks +750, and then the Timberwolves at +1,000 to win the Larry O'Brien. So if you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. And continuing on here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast, home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. All right, let's go ahead and we're going to dive into the conversation with Eay Odoka and Vanessa Richardson first, and then we'll share some thoughts about it afterwards.
Alperen Sengun accomplished one of his goals, which was to be an all-star. What did you like about his development this season?
Yeah, he built off of what he did last year. He had really good carryover into this season. Continued to improve in his areas of weakness, and just was a consistent, steadying force for us. And so, the fact that we're winning, he had a huge part in that, and he was rewarded because of that. And so, we felt other guys were rewarding us some things as well. But great to have him accomplish that. Something he's really set out to accomplish since he got to the NBA. And so, it was great to support him, see the family, see his happiness there, and obviously. Our thing with him is let's not make it a one-off, it's make it a perennial thing, and so that's the goal for all those guys, and they get a taste of that and want more, obviously, and so for him it's to increase everything and come back with the same drive and hunger he had before he got it.
Speaking of hard coaching, I remember Amen's rookie year, you said you were going to be harder on Amen because you did not want him to develop some of the bad habits that the other guys had. He was sensational this year. What stands out when you look at his incredible season?
That he grew in every area. He's becoming and realizing who he is, and I think sometimes you respect your opponents too much at times, and that was him and a lot of rookies coming doing that. But once you look at them like for who they are, just another guy out there, and look at yourself and hold yourself in a higher esteem, you go about it different, carry yourself different, and stop idolizing guys so much. And so for him, he attacked everybody the same. Took on the mantra of no friends on the court, and I think you could see the nasty streak come out of him at times, obviously, but it takes you back to, I'm sure, the childhood fights with him in the Hussar, and you can see that streak. And so he grew in every area, like the jumper will come and all that stuff, but the recognition IQ and his versatility defensively and offensively in every position that he played really stood out. What did Steven Adams bring to this team this season? Vulgar mouth half the time.
This is true.
No, he opened up a whole different side to our team with what he does. He is one of the best at the offensive rebound. He's been there forever. It was just a matter of getting healthy again after a year and a half off. Getting his legs under him, rhythm under him, and understanding what we're looking for, which was be who you are. And so, obviously, the lineups with him and Alperen were great, but his IQ, I would say him and Fred are two of the most high IQ veteran players that we have, and they would talk and do it in different ways. But he was just another guy out there, kind of, especially when he went to zone, his communication was on point, and the things he does on the offensive glass and his unselfishness really stand out, beside being an enforcer that kind of backed everybody up with all the toughness. You mentioned in the post-game press conference you want to see a jump in the IQ department from your guys. What does that look like, and what do you and your staff do during the summer to help them make that jump? Yeah, a big part of it is experience that you have to go through, and you can kind of fall back on those things. But for us, it's a lot of film work, a lot of situational things, a lot of one-on-one sessions. And what did you see here? What were you thinking when this happened on the court? And just to hear how they're thinking and what they see, and it's the onus is on them to really obviously improve in that area. But we'll push them and help them as much as we can as well. And so. Like I say, experience is the best teacher for a lot of those things, but how do you expedite the process so you don't really have to go through some of the same situations, but also can rely on things you've gone through. And so it's a ton of film work. Guys learn different ways. You kind of go through it on the court and watch film, or you can draw things up, but figuring out what best works for our guys to improve in that area.
Love the answers from Eay Odoka there. Shout out to Vanessa, always doing a great job with this team, and in these interviews in particular. If you want to see the full interview with Eay and with Rafael Stone that we'll get to in just a moment, I'm gonna put links to both of them to her YouTube channel in the episode description, so definitely go check those out, please. But just to get through a few of the things that Eay commented on. First, I love his optimism, right, for Alperen Sengun, right, talking about the success that he's had this season, right? His growth as a player. Obviously, we know the strides that he made defensively this, really the last two seasons, but especially this year. And, his first taste of playoff basketball, so much of the worry and concern with Sengun, oh my God, is he going to get played off the floor? And like, if Sengun can stay on the floor, not just stay on the floor, but be a net positive defender, against a Steph Curry led Golden State Warriors team, then, I'm incredibly optimistic about his future, defensively, and, the fact that he's never really going to be a defensive weakness, on the floor, which is huge for his development. He knows that he needs to get better with the finishing around the rim, but to earn, his first All-Star nod this season, the first Rockets homegrown All-Star since Yao Ming. And, for Eay to say, to make it a perennial thing, right? He wants him to be a year in, year out All-Star, right? That's high praise from Eay to even mention that it could be a perennial thing for Alperen Sengun to be an all-star, each and every season. Loved his commentary on Amen Thompson, talking about the no friends on the court attitude, the bit of a nasty streak that we've kind of seen breaking out of Amen Thompson as of late, right? Just getting into it with guys, right? Ragdoll and Tyler Harrow across Toyota Center floor, and getting some ejections here and there. And Amen Thompson, he's got a little bit of a mean streak to him. And we even saw it right against the Warriors where, he was talking trash, and then Dillon Brooks had to step in and play peacemaker there for a minute. So, it definitely feels like Amen Thompson is, over the course of this past year, really started coming into his own and understanding just how impactful he can be, on the floor, not just on the defensive end though, but really offensively, seeing the different ways that he could, at times really take over a game offensively. And, seeing what Amen Thompson tried to do there in Game 7 in that third quarter, he and both Alperen and Sengun trying to will the Rockets back into that game. It really, that moment of that Game 7 kind of felt like things were slowing down for Amen Thompson, where he was like, no, I can put this team on my back and drag us back into this. And so when I talk about, the expectations for Amen Thompson year 3, I don't even know if I'm prepared. I don't know if anybody's really prepared for what we're going to see out of him this next season. I think the jump is going to be pretty considerable for him moving forward. All he needs is the opportunity. All he needs is the chance to have the ball in his hands and to, live and learn and, maybe make some mistakes here and there on the floor. But the growth has been just flat out exponential for him up to this point. The Steven Adams vulgar mouth bit was hilarious too. Love those candid moments from Eay where he'll crack a smile and make a little joke here or there. But and then I really thought it was intriguing, right, hearing about the IQ part of things for this team, and a lot of it is going over film and putting the work in, and helping players recognize, okay, what did you see here? What can you do differently here? But in watching the playoffs this season, right, and seeing the guys who understand the game at a deeper level, right, guys who are so incredibly cerebral, guys like Tyrese Halliburton, right, SGA, guys who just have this innate feel for the game. I do really wonder, and maybe we'll visit this in a future episode, because I think it's a very intriguing discussion, right? How much of like the feel for the game, right? How much of basketball IQ is innate versus learned, right? Like how much can you really improve your overall basketball IQ versus just having, this natural feel for the game and understanding how to move, where to go, what to do on the floor. And the point about, experience being, such an important teacher for that, I do think that, right, this Rockets playoff experience is going to be invaluable to so many of the young guys across the board who now they can look back and, they've lived through it, right? They went through a 7-game series. They literally made it to a Game 7, right? And as cool as it would have been for the Rockets to, maybe match up with the Grizzlies in the first round and have an easier first round opponent, and then, make it to the second round and deal with the Wolves. I kind of like that the Rockets had to deal with the Warriors. I kind of like that they had to go up against that juggernaut of a team at full strength, mind you, because I know they got waxed by the Wolves, but, there was no Steph Curry there. Dealing with a Warriors team that played like a top 4 team, that played like the best defense in the NBA, after acquiring Jimmy Butler. That was a huge test for this Rockets team. And even though they didn't technically pass because they lost in Game 7, I think that based on the expectations for what you hope to learn about this team this season, and, the goal being just make it to the playoffs, get that playoff experience, right? Don't get embarrassed in round 1. They took a very, very good Warriors team, a championship caliber Warriors team, all the way to Game 7. And I think you got to be incredibly proud. And again, that's going to pay serious dividends moving forward. for the development of guys up and down the roster. So really loved a lot of what Eay Odoka had to share. Again, if you want to hear the full interview with Eay, click on the click on the link in the episode description. Coming up, we'll hear from Rafael Stone, his thoughts on continuity versus star chasing and more. We're going to get there in just one moment. And final segment here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast, home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. All right, let's dive into Vanessa Richardson's conversation with general manager Rafael Stone.
It feels like you drafted guys that perfectly fit the mindset of the coaching staff, which is funny because you drafted most of them before this coaching staff was here. So what do you like about that identity, that culture, and that synergy that is among this team and this franchise right now?
Yeah, I think what we found is that for just organizationally, and it actually, this one doesn't start with me, it starts with Tillman, but I think there's a certain personality type that is going to do better here than others. And so Eay definitely fits that. He fits Tillman really well. He fits me really well. And we all the three of us all kind of approach life in the same way. And so I think that bleeds into our players. And one of the great things about bringing in young, talented guys, or guys that are this young, they're trying to figure out how to be professional. I think some of it is, you observe it and then you do it. I think one of the great things about having a team this young is my personality, Emay's personality, Fred's personality, Dillon's personality, Steven's. And all of us actually share a lot of the same characteristics, but I think it then becomes, for our young players, I think it just kind of became what you do. This is how you were successful, and so I think we've kind of built something around kind of work ethic and toughness that everybody, those guys too, that we're all comfortable with.
The continuity versus getting a superstar. I'm not going to ask you what you're going to do because I know that you wouldn't tell me, but what factors play into that decision?
Well, the superstar thing is it's largely, in the NBA, it's largely points, which is at least as much, points are a factor of who shoots. Some of that is offense driven. So it ends up being cyclical. If you engineer your offense around one player, they're going to score more, they're going to get more assists. I don't think that's in Emay's DNA. So some of this is just how we're going to go about it. I think we're going to be a team-focused team. And that doesn't mean we won't do a trade for a really talented player. But I also think we have really, really talented players on this roster. And I think they're all improving. And so before we trade one or two or three or four of those guys for a more veteran guy, we want to make sure that we give this current group room to grow. The huge caveat to all of that is the job is to win championships. That is my one and only goal. And if we think there's a better path than continuity, we would pursue it. But right now that bar is pretty high.
You said in that press conference, as you did just now, the goal is to build a championship team. So what's the next step in making that happen? I mean,
for right now, it's getting better over the course of the summer. That's what's in front of us, and I guarantee you we're not going to turn over the entire team. So we definitely, it's for our players, and young players definitely have a greater opportunity than do more veteran ones. And we're extraordinarily young. So for those guys, this summer is just an enormous opportunity, and they're entering it coming off this hard-fought playoff series where they should have learned some really important lessons about small things, technique, how important they are, but also just the rhythm of the game and the intensity of the game and all of those things that, if you haven't done it, people describe it to you, but it's hard to fully internalize. So we've, our whole team has that under their belt. So to internalize that, come back with a renewed focus. Those things that were a struggle in the playoffs, make sure that you're really working on those areas. Just generally the areas of weakness that you had last year, make sure you're bringing those up, and your strengths, make sure they're stronger.
Love the conversation. There's some great points brought up in that. And again, if you want to see the full one, click on the link in the episode description for Rafael Stone's full interview with Vanessa Richardson. But starting with kind of the, the whole continuity versus star, pursuit thing, a couple of the points that Rafel brought up are interesting, to say the least. Right. The idea that points being a factor of who shoots and that it's cyclical. And if you engineer your offense around one player, then they'll score more or that they'll assist more. I think the argument there is a little, it's kind of semantics. It's like, well, the star players get those opportunities more than other players because they're generally better than other players. Like I understand the premise of like, oh yeah, if you build an offense around like, Joe Blow, who's like the 8th man on a team somewhere, then yeah, they'll get more opportunities than so-and-so who, if you build the offense around this guy, right? Like, so yes, to a lesser degree, right? Like heliocentric guys are going to have the chance to put up and, put up more numbers or stuff the stat sheet a little bit more than other guys. But at the same time, right? Star players get those opportunities because they're just better at it than other players. Like that's what makes the difference between being, a rotation guy or a role player versus a star player. You can't just put a role player in a star player's shoes and say, hey, we're going to give you 25 shots a game and you're going to go get us buckets, right? Like you have to be able to actually elevate your play to do that. And you also have to be able to elevate those around you. And so I think that was, I don't know, that point was a little funny to me. But the follow-up to that of, the idea that that approach to basketball is not really in Emay's DNA and that the Rockets are going to try to focus on being a team-focused team, I think that does make a lot of sense. And I think that certainly matches what we've seen out of this team the past 2 years. And in fact, what we saw out of the Boston Celtics when Eay Odoka was running the ship over there, right? Like the Celtics kind of came out of the gate and they struggled for the first few months that season where Eay was the head coach before things really started to click in January or so of that year before they made their finals run. And it was because Eay wanted a team that was more well-rounded. He didn't just want to dump the ball in Jason Tatum or Jalen Brown's hands and let them go to work, right? He wanted all 5 guys to be connected and playing well together on the floor. And that's very much what you've seen Eay try to do in his approach with this Rockets team is, there are times where maybe it's Jalen's night or maybe it's Sengun's night or maybe it's, Fred or Dillon or Jabari or whoever I'm in. And I do think there is some merit there. I think there's, a significant number of positives to the whole, sometimes you, sometimes me, always us kind of mentality. But like we talked about during the season and like we talked about during the series against the Warriors and even in the aftermath of that series, right? You need the star players, you need guys who are able to rise to the occasion. You need guys who can step up when the lights are brightest. And that's what star players do. That's what guys do. That's what we saw Tyrese Haliburton do the other night when he hit the game tying bucket and hit the choke job gesture, in front of all of New York City. Guys who are built for the moment, guys who don't shy away, guys who aren't scared of the moment on the floor. And that's what a star player brings, right? Star players bring so much more than just the stats, right? They bring those intangibles. And I do think that the Rockets, right, up and down the roster, they've got an immense amount of talent and they've got guys who have already shown kind of some of the cojones in those moments, right? Guys like Sengun and Amen Thompson who have shown to be able to handle those moments when the lights are incredibly bright. And, guys like Jalen who kind of struggled against the Warriors, take it as a learning opportunity, come back better next year and grow from it. But yeah, so we'll see what happens there. I do think that there's, something to be debated about kind of that mentality of being a team-focused team, because at the end of the day, you do like star players win you championships. Like, you can go through all of, the history of the NBA, and there are very few teams that you look at that didn't have a de facto star leading them or leading the way. Like the 04 Pistons come to mind, right? And that's like the first and only team that really comes to mind. Maybe the 2014 Spurs also come to mind as a team that was a kind of a team-oriented team or a team-focused team that didn't necessarily have one true blue star in their midst, but they were a very well-rounded team, right? Where it was, every player was a cog in the machine and they operated and played so well off of one another. Maybe this Rockets team is able to, elevate and get to that point one day. We'll see. But by and large, it's a lot easier to win when you have a star player or two to bank on, in those big time moments when the going gets tough. The other really big line that I wanted to highlight here is Stone saying, I guarantee you we won't turn over the entire team. Talking about, right, and, obviously Stone, there's a lot of lawyer speak there, right, saying, okay, if, the caveat being, right, if we have a chance to upgrade, if we have a chance to make a trade for a guy that we think improves the roster, his whole goal is to win a championship, right? That's his job. And so if there are opportunities out there to do that, then he will pursue those opportunities. I do think that this Rockets team is they are fast approaching a point where roster consolidation is going to become a thing. Like, we kind of thought it might be a thing last summer, but it was Ime's first year, and it was his first chance to really get to know a lot of these young guys, and we weren't quite ready to that point of like, okay, well now, like, you got to make a decision on this guy, or like you got to decide, are we paying these guys, are they going, like, whatever. This offseason, with so many potentially big name guys available, right, with guys like maybe Giannis on the market, Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, maybe you get involved in the Jalen Brown talks if the Celtics decide to, cut bait there and reduce their payroll with this kind of, gap year that they're going to have with Jason Tatum and his Achilles injury. Like, there's so much going on, and there are so many players that could be available this offseason that the Rockets are going to have to, do some very hard thinking about the future of this organization and what direction they ultimately want to go in. And if they're ready to, push some of their chips to the center of the table, not all their chips, mind you, right, but some of them. And that means, right, making some hard choices on some of these young guys. And in a league where every team is striving to get better every single offseason, in a Western Conference that is going to be, even harder this next season, right? Like, the West was already a bloodbath this year. It's going to be even worse next season with the Spurs, a healthy Spurs roster, which TBD on if Giannis lands in San Antonio, right? Because that would be just catastrophic for the Rockets. But even as presently constructed, right, the Spurs with Wemby and De'Aaron Fox and all the other young talent, and potentially the number 2 overall pick, right? The Spurs may just add Dillon Harper to that mix. Like, that could be crazy. They're going to be significantly better this next season. The Blazers showed some improvement this last year. The Mavericks, who were in the play-in discussion, right, but kind of like, faded after the whole Luka situation, dealt with a mountain of injuries. They just landed the Cooper Flag sweepstakes. Like, they're going to be missing Kyrie for a chunk of next year, but they're still going to be a very, very tough team to deal with next season. There's only going to be one, maybe 2 teams in the Western Conference that are like actively still tanking next year. It'll be the Jazz and maybe like the Pelicans, depending on what they ultimately decide to do with Zion. That's going to be tough, right? This Rockets team may not walk into 52 wins again next year unless they make a significant move this offseason to improve the roster. You can't just bank. While I'm incredibly optimistic about the future for so many of the young guys on this team, I think it might be foolish to just bank on internal growth when the West is as stacked as it is, and doesn't look like it's changing anytime in the foreseeable future. So that's what I got. I definitely want your thoughts. Again, give me your favorite moment, your favorite defensive highlight from Amen Thompson this season. Give me your thoughts on what Eay Odoka and Rafael Stone had to share in their exit interviews with Vanessa Richardson. To check out the full interviews, click on the links in the episode description. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. And we look forward to having you back right here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball.